Pat yourself on the back because you are right here, right now, for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. How you doing this morning, Jerrod?
Dude, I am so good right now to be seeing your happy little face. I haven't seen many people in a while. I've been out in the woods.
Just a bunch of turkeys, huh?
Turkeys and deer and my beautiful bride. So life is good, man. We're 1 week into making this adjustment to kind of some off-grid style living, and definitely learning some new stuff about us and our as individuals and a couple, and just honestly how recharging nature is.
Yeah, that's exciting, man. I'm happy for you. It looks like you're really enjoying yourself out there.
Yeah, man, it's something we've worked hard for. So how's the Florida tan going, and how am I supposed to appreciate with that sport coat hiding it?
Dude, what are you talking about? You can see the tan going. It's going good. We actually went parasailing last week, so we try and do a date night once a week, and Courtney surprised me with a date day last Friday, and got a little sun. So Florida's going great, man. We're loving it over here.
Dude, are we gonna get Tank Top Ali anytime soon? I kind of want to see Tank Top Ali.
You want to see these guns or what? You want to see what I've been doing over here? Staying in the
gotta
gym?
keep tabs, man. You know you can hide. You can hide under a sport coat. Many an overweight businessman has hid some stuff under a sport coat. Just saying.
That's true, man. Black suit. You can hide a lot, but you know the Lebanese lion ain't slacking. Come on now.
All right, I know. I just miss you, man. This has been like the longest we've gone without talking.
Yeah.
Like 10
2
days.
weeks.
Yeah, I texted you I was sick, and like it's weird. Like out of the blue, our phone will just go off, and we'll start getting all these text messages and internet, and then you'll go to the same spot the next day at the same time, nothing. So It's kind of good. I think kind of that might have been why I got sick, is I was like detoxing from that world to this world, like the world of nothing but information overload and technology and resources everywhere, to a place where it's nothing but peace and quiet and resourcefulness.
Mother Nature was you got to earn your place here, boy.
I think they tried to smack the city kid out of me.
I love it.
Yeah, but it's good, man. I'm excited for today. One, I get to see you again, and two, man, I think today's guest has a super awesome story that I'm privileged that we get to share.
Yes. Yeah, I'm super excited to bring on today's special guest. So our special guest today, she has over 10 years experience of not only being a school teacher, but also a yoga teacher. She has thousands of hours coaching students, and actually also over 1,000 hours of yoga teacher training, which is extremely high. I don't think I've ever seen a yoga instructor have that many hours. She's also a certified Ayurveda therapist, a meditation and mindfulness consultant, a master herbalist, and has over 7 years of teaching domestic and international spirituality programs and retreats. And she is also someone that I talk about very much on the podcast because she is my love, my partner, my right-hand woman, Miss Courtney Bohlman. Welcome, Courtney.
Hi. Thank you for a great introduction. Hi, gentlemen. Glad to be here.
We're honored to have you. Thank you for coming on. What, 1,000 hours, over 1,000 hours. So
lots.
Is there some rank that comes with that? Does yoga stuff have ranks amongst their coaches, or is that anti-yoga? You can't have rank and be in yoga.
Yeah, not quite ranking, but to the point now where I can actually certify other teachers because I've done so many trainings. So
very
that's
cool.
pretty wonderful. Mm-hmm.
And how's that going? How's the practice going? I know you're putting some time into that with retreats and different social aspects of it.
Yeah, the practice has been amazing. I've been trying to get back to my local community, offering free classes here in the park. And then obviously my own personal practice, which just fills me up. And then, all the retreats and everything. So I love it. I'm able to share in quite a few ways.
That's awesome. Well, we're privileged to have you, but before we jump into like the big stuff, we got to kind of warm you up so our community gets to know who Courtney is. And one of the things we really like to know is if you only had one food for the rest of your life, what would Courtney be taking with her?
I mean, honestly, the first thing that came up was pickles. I don't really know if that's a practical only food to have, but it's definitely like probably my favorite food. We have a whole shelf in the refrigerator every time we go to the grocery store. I try a new pickle brand, and I've got a few that are my favorite for sure. So that's what came up. So I'm gonna just live off of pickles, I guess.
Sweet or dill or
Dill,
common dill?
definitely spicy dill. I don't like the
Oh,
butter sweet. I'm not a sweet person. Well,
spicy
I'm a
dill.
sweet person, but I don't like sweet.
Quartered or whole? Which
Ooh, I actually like quartered, but I can get down on a whole pickle too.
you trust people to cut you in perfect quarters, huh? See, I
I
envisioned you
mean,
might be
I'm not
like,
a perfectionist,
okay,
so
okay. I got the vibe that you might know like the perfect quarter cut, so you'd want a whole pickle.
no, if I get whole pickles, I just like chomp on it.
That's good. All right, Ali.
Man, I would have answered incorrectly on the couples quiz. I was thinking for sure you were going to say cheese.
Ooh, that's a good one too, but I would be quite overweight and bloated.
This is true. This
Have
is
some
true.
bathroom issues if all I ate was cheese.
Yep.
That is true.
So, second question, Courtney, is if you could be any superhero, and an actual superhero like Wonder Woman or made up like Super Courtney, and have any superpower, who would you be and what would your power be?
Well, I would definitely be my own superhero. And my power would be the ability to just come up to people and like tap them in their chest and have them remember their greatness. Just and then that would be it. I would just be moving all over the world, just like waking people up.
I love that.
I do too,
Yeah.
man. Like that actually might have been my favorite one ever. Just your
that'd be a
power
cool
would be to walk around, just wake people up to remember they could be great.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
That is good.
Trying to do that now, just not that quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about that through the episode. How quick is it? Like, how much effort does that take? All right, Courtney, we love reading and sharing our books, our favorite books with our community. So what are, either a couple books you're reading now or a couple of your favorites that have helped you kind of develop this mission in your life?
Yeah, I have a few like fallback books that I read like once a year or every couple years. So I love Autobiography of a Yogi. That's definitely one that sent me down my path. And I remember finding it in college when I wasn't ready to read it. I tried and couldn't, and I had to come back to it a little while later on my path. And now it's really integrated into who I am. I also love Be Love Now, which is a Ram Dass book. So we had Be Here Now, which is also great, but Be Love Now is all about being love and remembering that we are love, and that love is actually a state, a realm that we can live in, but it's a choice that we have to enter love and live in love and be love. So I love that one. And right now I'm almost done with The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, which is also really good. It's a short read, and it's through stories, and I love stories. I'm a storyteller, so I find it just amazing. But it's a spiritual story of this lawyer who just hit that threshold of what he could handle in this world and left and went to India or Nepal and hiked up the Himalayas and found a group of mystical beings and learned from them, and came back to share that information and that knowledge with his world and inspire people and help remind them that this isn't true. This isn't what life has to be. There's so much more depth available and expansiveness. And so that's a really good one as well.
Love those. Yeah, the monk who sold his Ferrari has a lot of ties to the idea that we're living in a simulation, right? We are in the Matrix kind of thing, and I really enjoyed those too. So thanks for those recommendations.
So, Courtney, I want to go back to your superpower now. So, as we start sharing your story with the community and bringing to light who you are, that superpower kind of took me back for a minute. thinking, okay, of all the things somebody could pick, because usually we'll pick our superpower kind of based off something we want in life. Was there something more to that? Like, how would you have picked that superpower? Is there somebody that like helped you decide you could be great or remind you could be great? Is there a story behind coming up with that? And if so, could you share that a little bit and kind of enlighten us on that?
I think it kind of comes back to being a teacher and working in the public school systems and just seeing, in my opinion, how much those systems fail our children, and trying to be that, trying to, seeing that greatness, seeing that uniqueness in each child and trying to encourage it. And then constantly hitting those barriers in the school systems that say, that's not what we want. We want children to be the same and act the same and think the same and do the same things and to become workers, little worker bees. And so I got to see it firsthand. I got to like witness these, because I was young, I was elementary school. So kindergarten, first grade were my students. And so I could witness them in that spark of inspiration and potential, and then see them go through the school system and become these kind of duller versions of themselves. And so I think I just witnessed it so much that I realized, like, that's it. That's what we have to do, because as an adult, it's so hard to remove all those belief systems and all those limitations we've taken on. But if we could start with our children and never place those on them, the potential of what they could become and what our world could be, I can't even imagine it. We've never seen it. And so I think just witnessing and being in that environment that stifled that reminded me of the importance of it and my part to play in it.
Yeah, no, that's very powerful. What have you found is the easiest or a very effective way to get somebody to remember that they have greatness within them?
Well, I am very much a feeling creature. So I often will just remind the people who at least work with me or my students of like, slow down the mind, feel into yourself, like feel into that part of you that holds that potential, like feel into your energy, feel into your expansiveness, like slow down, come within and feel that. Because if people can slow down enough to tap in and feel that inside of themselves, that spark is awakened, and that's where that potential can be born from. But we have to feel it, we have to know it in ourselves before we could ever bring it into the world. And so I think just slowing down, come to the breath, close the eyes, and feel into yourself, feel into your energy, feel into your being, and live from there, move from there, create from there.
Yep, I love it, and I love the fact, and I agree 1,000% is that it's within you, not outside of you. And I think too many adults, especially adults that are looking for more in their life, spend all their time, money and resources looking from outside to come in, when really the truth is it's right there the whole time if you go to it and listen to it. That's powerful. I love that. Yeah, I just love your superpower, and the thing that I love about it is we can all share that superpower. If at the end of this episode we all decide to go out today and just remind one person that we contact that they could be great and that there's greatness within them, what would the world become?
Yeah. And then you remind that person, so then they wake up and they get to remind somebody else, and it's just this beautiful ripple effect that we get to create.
Yeah, I love it. And that yeah, man, it kind of just took my breath away there for a second.
So Courtney, I have a question for you, because it wasn't always like this for you, I'm sure, right? You grew up in the school system that you later got to realize was broken. And as you know, us at least mostly in the United States, we go through the school system and no one ever teaches us to go within, to close our eyes, to follow the breath. No one ever teaches us how to find greatness within. And you mentioned that your superpower, which is a big part of your life purpose now, you discovered through witnessing these students seeing their greatness within and seeing how the curriculum you're given to taught doesn't really do a good job of helping them see that within themselves. So if we back it up, how were you able to see that within you first before you could actually witness others in their greatness? Where did it all start for you?
I feel fortunate that at some level within myself, I've always known since I was a little girl that I was special, but I believe we're all special. But I still knew it within myself. I knew there was something in me that had this huge potential. And so I definitely carried that. I was lucky to be born in a very loving family. And so my mom was a school teacher and was very, very giving, and we always had children over for meals and donating our extra clothes. And so I got to see kindness and I got to see love and an open heart. And so I was able to kind of carry that through my life. But really, it wasn't until my last few years of college that I really stepped into that more like spiritual connected side of myself. And in all honesty, like I was seeking more. I wanted to understand more. I didn't grow up with religion or anything. And so I started studying different belief systems and exploring what that would look like, and ended up going to a music festival. And 100% transparency, I was really young. I took some acid and just like my world just changed. I had a very profound experience that first time, and I was sitting under a tree meditating in the forest, and I felt like I was there for like 5 minutes maybe. But when I connected with my friends later, I found out I was there for like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours in meditation. But when I opened my eyes, so it was just me. And when I opened my eyes, there were almost like 30 people around me that had joined me in meditation. And I could feel it happening in me. I could like feel myself expanding. I could feel myself growing. I could like feel all this opening. And I didn't realize I was like pulling people in to connect with me. And then I opened my eyes, and it was one of those moments of like, whoa, like I did this. Like I created this safe space for people to come into and be with me in. And so from that point on, my mission was then, how do I find that on my own? Because it's within me. It's obviously within me. And so what are the tools and techniques that I can use to enter that sacred space on my own? Because it's mine. I found it. And so how do I get back there? How do I get back there naturally? And that's kind of been the path that led me towards all the other practices that I now have that naturally allow me to come back to that space within myself.
It's funny because Steve Jobs has a very similar story to where he was working on Apple and he tried acid for the first time, and that experience actually led him to India, and he was deep in meditation and looked within for months, and then was able to come back into the world. So was your experience similar? I know that India is part of your story. Was that after your music festival experience or before?
Yeah, the first time I went to India was a few years after that, actually. And it was when I finally was able to move through or not the Bhagavad Gita, but the autobiography of a yogi. I had said earlier, like I couldn't really make it through the book. I had to come back to it. And I came back to it a few years after that experience and was able to move through it. And in reading that book, felt called to go to India. I was learning about all these saints and these wisdom keepers, and just like felt my soul just like calling me to like go to that sacred place and connect with these mountains that they spoke about, and just to travel the country in trust and experience. And so yeah, that was I remember like feeling called and not acting. I let my mind talk me out of it and talk me out of it. And it was like almost a year where I would feel called and then stop myself, and called and then stop myself. And I was at work one day sitting on my computer with a coworker, and I felt that call again. Like I just so strongly was like, oh, I feel like I'm supposed to go to India. And she was like, just do it, you know? And I was like, okay. And I just like pulled up and booked a flight for 3 weeks and just like, and did it. And then after was like, what did I just do? But I also was feeling called to India because of yoga. I had taken my first 200 hours training in the West, and it was missing something. It was lacking the philosophy. It was lacking the roots. It was lacking the depth that I was searching for. And so that was another part of really feeling called to go to India, where it originates, where it's rooted, where the sacredness still lives with yoga, because it's really hard to find that sacred experience with yoga in the West because it's become a workout, not a work in. And so just feeling called for these few different reasons to just step into that place, that sacred place where I knew I could find more of myself.
Why do you think you were, even though you were being called here, why do you think you would step away from it and pull yourself back and stay in the routine that you had that clearly wasn't fulfilling you? Why do you, and share that with the community? Like what was it that was wanting you to stay there, and how did you finally overcome that and just leap into where you thought you should be?
Yeah, the mind. I think that for most of us, we have that internal guiding system and we hear it, but we don't respond quick enough. And then the mind comes in and it says, you don't have enough money. You don't have enough time. You're not ready. You know, whatever those beliefs are that just keep us keep us stuck, keep us limited, keep us small. And I left too much space. I didn't act when I felt inspired, and my mind came in. It told me I couldn't. I listened, and then I'd feel inspired again, and let the mind come back in. And so for me, it's been a beautiful journey of learning to move beyond that limiting mind and live from that limitless heart. That truly is limitless. Like the potential of our heart is, we don't even know.
Right.
And so yeah, when that intuition comes, act. That has been my story now. I act, I move when it comes, because I know if I don't, I'll stop myself and I'll miss whatever that experience was that had the potential of journeying on, learning from.
Yeah, we did an episode a couple weeks back now in which we talked about other people's perceptions becoming your reality. Right. And that's kind of what I sense from that. And I've seen it in my life, and I've seen it those around us. We have these big dreams, and then we don't act right away. And like you said, our mind starts playing in. Well, our mind starts playing in a lot of times information that isn't even ours. It's what's being told to us, right? Well, you have to have all these answers or these answers. You have to have this amount of resources or that amount of resources. And we talk ourselves out of it based on experiences that were never even ours to begin with.
100%. Yeah, or it's not practical. You need to get a job. You need to do this. Yeah, absolutely. Our beliefs. I actually have an online program called You Are What You Believe that's all about that. Like, where do our beliefs come from? Like, we have to look at these things that impact us to create us. And then we move in the world as this being that has been created from the outside. So how can we do the work to look at the beliefs that we carry, to hear those voices, notice where they come from, and then decide for ourselves if we actually want to carry them, if they actually are our truth, and then let them go, and know that when you let something go, something has to come in. So create that space to find your true beliefs, your truth, your direction, your path.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. That should be messaging we share with our youth that is missed many times over. Right. And I can't tell you, at least in my stage of life, the last few weeks having Taya graduate high school, which is the last of my kids, and how many times we go up and people that haven't seen them in years, the first thing they want to ask is, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? And I always pull them aside. I'm like, hey, why don't you ask her who she wants to be?
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about what she wants to do next, figure out who she wants to be, because the what will take care of itself. But so many, like you're saying there, like you have these callings of who you want to be, But as society, we focus on what you're supposed to be, right? You assign a job title, a certain income, certain monetary possessions, establish your worth, when truly our worth is established within.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is just results of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's key, what you're speaking to. It's like when we can find ourselves, like it all just unfolds. We just have to be moving as that person, and life presents us with what needs to happen. And I do believe in the purpose of dreams,
Yeah.
like dreaming and like envisioning the potential of what you can become and what you want to create. I do believe that there's some direction that's needed, but there has to be fluidity, and it has to come from you, from your truth. And so that is the first part, is like figure out who you are and who you want to be and who you're becoming, and then allow that to guide you into the creation of what you're bringing into the world as your gift.
Yeah. And what do you think
So
about allowing it to, sorry, Ollie, allowing it to change?
100%. We
Yeah.
change and we grow. We're expanding beings. Where it should change, because and it doesn't have to. Some people are like, this is my purpose, this is where I'm going, that's it. But we have to allow change. Change is the only constant in the world. So it's like, to think that we're going to know at 18 what we want to do for the rest of our lives, I think it's naive. I think that we're becoming constantly. We're becoming by everything that we experience, everything that we take in. And so as we take a different path, our path changes. And so that comes back to that. If you know who you are and allow that to be your guide, then just trust the path that's unfolding in front of you, and trust the intuition to take the path, take the step when it comes to you. And then that's when magic happens.
Yeah. No, I agree. Even when, something as simple as you and Ollie deciding to move to Florida, so many people came up to me and were like, "What are you guys going to do with the podcast? Is the podcast over? Are you guys done now? Because he's so far away." And then I'm in my head that, like, the fact that that's even the angle you see this, you're already you're putting a limited belief on what we are. So I can only imagine what you limit yourself to be, versus being like, "Dude, I'm excited. We're going to get better." He's going to have a new community with new experiences and new stories and new opportunities, and I get to grow and he gets to grow. And I think ultimately that should be our focus in life, right? Like if we wake up every day and we're like, okay, I'm going to grow today. How am I going to grow?
Mm-hmm.
And when I grow, you inspire me to grow, right? You grow, you let me grow. Now all of a sudden, like now it becomes contagious. Instead of us sitting and worrying about all the other stuff in the world, we're literally growing.
Yep. 100%.
So I
100%.
thank you for allowing us to grow with you, Courtney.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Go ahead, Ollie. I took over for you there, brother. Sorry about that.
oh, you're good. You're good. So I have a question, Courtney, for some of us who may have no interest, because I agree with you. We all have an intuition. We all have this internal guidance system, just like birds know to migrate south in the winter without anyone telling them or teaching them, right? We know to an extent what we're supposed to do, where we're supposed to go. We have our intuition. But let's say I have no interest in ever taking acid and going to a music festival. I have no interest in practicing yoga or traveling to India. What would you say for our community members who may not have any interest in the path that you have taken, to how can people connect with their intuition, with their higher self, without doing some of those things that were along your path?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that we all have a unique path, and I certainly don't think that my path is the only way to have that experience. And I think that that is a piece of the exploration part. For you, I assume that both of you probably can move into that place of like stillness and connection when you're fighting. Like there are so many tools. It's all about finding whatever your tool is, whatever your practice is, that lets you become 100% present. Because that's what it is. It's becoming so present in the moment that you are alive, that you're truly living. And so a piece of that is exploring. You have to be brave enough to explore different paths, different potentials, and find the tools that work for you, because it is going to be different for each of us. But until you practice things and you try things, you're never going to know. So if you haven't found your tool yet, try something else. Try something different. Maybe it's dance. You could take a dance class or go to ecstatic dancing, something like that. For some people, they can move in the sacred by deep listening. So there's so many tools, and it's all just about paying attention when you're present in these different experiences to which one really lets you get clear, really lets you come to your center, and hold on to it, expand in it, grow from it, learn more about it, and develop it into your practice. That's a piece of it too. Whatever the skill is, whatever the tool is, making it your own is a really key piece, and allowing it to guide you to that place within yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And so many practices do take us there, right? To where you have to be completely present. When you're doing yoga and you're in Warrior Three trying to keep your balance on one foot, it's not going to be very easy to think about anything else. Or if you're in the cage with another man or woman who's trying to knock you out, you're not going to be thinking about what you got to do tomorrow. You're totally in that moment. So I loved how you say that it's about finding what it is that brings you to the present. And we talk a lot about meditation here on the On Purpose podcast as well, and that is the training tool to stay in the present, but it doesn't just have to be that. There's so many things in our world that we can do that bring us there to the present moment. So I appreciate
Mhm.
you sharing that, Courtney.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with meditation too, it's a powerful tool, but I think it's important for people to realize that there's so many styles of meditation. Like we have this like one idea of what meditation is, and I think that that's what turns a lot of people off, because for so long their mind has been in control. And so to just all of a sudden sit down and quiet the mind, it just seems impossible. So people who are new to meditation, I definitely encourage exploring different styles, like walking meditations, like easing yourself into the practice where you can sit in that stillness and it doesn't overwhelm you and it doesn't frustrate you or upset you. There's just so many practices and styles, and that's that exploration piece too, like really finding what works for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's awesome. And one of the things you said that I loved is you talked about work, right? And I think too many times we want the quick way out, right? So your first experience was through acid, right? And that's something I have no experience with, right? It's just not my thing. But we can get to that same place
Mm-hmm.
where we're totally just immersed in a moment and our senses are overwhelmed with everything. Like I remember my very first fight. I remember like all the noises and the coach of my opponent telling him stuff and like going like, "Oh, that's terrible advice. You shouldn't." Like I remember having these conversations in my head. But it takes work and it takes discipline, right? So for me to have that moment of clarity in a fight took hours and hours of training.
Mm-hmm.
For you to develop your ability to go to that place now naturally without substances takes hours and hours. But it's time that we're investing in ourselves. It's time that we're growing. And when people say, I commonly hear this, right? Like, oh, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you have time for then? Do you have time to get stale and stagnant and not continue to grow? Because we have the same amount of time. It's just where we choose to put our time. So if you had a tip for somebody that's like, okay, I want to start following Courtney. I want to start being more in tune to my inner self so that I can become great. What would be maybe like 2 steps that they could start with at the end of this episode to put themselves on that progression? 2 things they could do for themselves.
So one thing I often share with people is around breath breaks. So like setting a timer in your phone 3 times a day that goes off every day, labeled breath break. And when it goes off, no matter what is happening, no matter what you are doing, you just stop and you take 3 to 5 deep, full breaths so you can come back to the present. Because I think like that's the trick, is like, it doesn't have to be this huge, long process. It is a lot of hard work. It is, but there are little tools and little tricks that we can do to just bring us there so much faster. And the breath is one of the most powerful ways. So I think that breath breaks is an incredible tool to help people. I have a timer. I don't always have it set, but quite often I have it in my phone that checks me, and it's like, whoa, I'm getting so carried away with everything I need to do and everything I need to create. Just stop, just breathe, just come back to the present moment, and then move again. So I think that's a huge one. And then you guys talk about this a lot, but also gratitude, because gratitude is love in motion. It's feeling into these experiences outside of yourself, or inside of yourself, that you're grateful for. But it's living love. You know, you're embodying it, you're experiencing it, and that exists in the present moment as well. So I think that to start, it's finding those little tools that can bring you back to center, and then moving from there. Because when you're filled with gratitude,
And remember, team,
it's just a
life
lot
is
easier.
far
You
too
can see all the
short to live
blessings,
any other way
and
than on
you can then
purpose.
see
We'll
the
see you all
blessings
again
coming.
next week.
And it's just an entirely different way of living. So I think that those are two really simple things that you can do that can really bring you back to the present moment. Like, throughout your day, just stop, take a moment to observe the flower and be grateful for its beauty. Take a deep breath and then move from there.
I love that.
Yeah, great
Yeah, and
advice.
those are powerful practices that anyone can put into their day, right, if they structure it correctly. And I love how we touched on the limiting belief of I don't have time, right? So many people we tell ourselves that we don't have time. And it was actually at your recent workshop, Courtney, through Wholesome Alchemy, or your recent retreat, where we had a limiting belief exercise. And I just want to share with this with the community, because it has been so powerful for me that anytime because it still comes up for me a lot. I like to call it, for me, my negative internal dialogue, which we had an episode on, is the bitch voice, right? So when that bitch voice is like, I don't have time, I'm aggressive with checking it and putting it in its place and saying, no, all I have is time. And I have the power to choose what I do with that time. And I believe that if we can all adopt that more empowering belief, then stuff like this of breath breaks, gratitude, okay, I have the power to choose and put that in my day. And that can be massively impactful. So for our listeners, those are two key things to start implementing if you don't do that already, and you feel that you want to get closer to your intuition, to being in the present moment, is gratitude and breath breaks.
Yeah. And they don't take much time at all. So they're so easy to implement and add into your life.
Yeah, and it's funny you talk about that. One of the first times I was introduced to really being conscious about breathing and the pace of my breath, and making it to where it focused me right back to where I was present and not thinking about all the problems and all the stuff that had to go on in my life, was through my first fight camp. We actually had a coach come in after one of the team practices, Ollie, and went through a guided meditation with the whole team and all our breathing and box breathing. She was a big advocate of box breathing. And I still do it to this day, because you cannot your mind won't wander if you're focused on only breathing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a fantastic tip. Courtney, we'd be remiss in letting you go without talking about something else I saw in your profile that I really wanted to explore, and that is your passion and work for West Africa. And specifically, I saw something in there that really kind of made me like, man, this is what we should be teaching our kids, right? Transformational yoga, meditation, spirituality, retreats, with sacred space, expanding, growing, witnessing our greatness. and, you know, a safe space where children can be children and explore and discover their uniqueness. Why, how did you get to West Africa, and how powerful is that? Letting children discover their greatness.
Yeah. Okay. That was a journey getting to West Africa, but it was one of those life experiences of trusting my intuition and letting it guide me. But I was very fortunate to be able to attend an education symposium. And at the time, I was teaching at a spirituality based school. And so it was like the day before the symposium, one of the speakers from the United States had canceled. And I knew the woman who had a big role in kind of orchestrating the event. And so she contacted me and she was like, could you speak at this event? Could you be a part of this event? And I remember my like low self, that limiting self came in first of like, I am not qualified. Like education symposium, these are like from all over the world, the people who are leading the changes in the educational systems. I was like, I just teach at a spiritual school. And she was like, no, but your beliefs are there. Like your passion is there. Like, and I need somebody.
Yeah.
So I got to go to that. And that was a huge, just up leveling of myself, because I got to listen to speakers from all over the world that were either in person or online sharing how they're changing education. And I had the three speakers in a row from Africa, and one of them was from Ghana, which is where one of our schools are. And I was in tears. I was like, couldn't even, I was like snot, tears, just like everything that they were saying was like touching my soul, because they were speaking a lot about just the refugee camps and the lack of funding and resources, and how for them ultimately just teaching children to read was what they needed, and how their teaching systems were still very much stuck in the old way of like physical discipline, and very rigid and very strict, and like that they didn't know the answer, but what they needed was to loosen that educational system up. And something in me was just like, oh my God, like, yes. And so after the conference, I went and connected and asked questions and was just like, can I know more about what you're doing? I want to help. I don't know how I can help, but I want to help. And then she had shared how one of the schools in one of the refugee camps was looking to hire somebody to help teach compassion-based education. And I was like, I want to do it. Like instantly, I like knew, I was like, I want to do it. And she was like, all right, I'm going to write you a letter of recommendation and then you can apply and whatnot. And I got home, it was like midnight, and I didn't wait. I just applied. I like didn't even wait for a letter of recommendation. I was just like, this is it. I'm supposed to do this. And I applied, and then it was 6 a.m. So I slept for maybe 5 hours, woke up to a phone call from the organization saying, we think you're perfect. Like everything that you said, just like, they didn't use the word resonate, but that's my word, but
Yeah.
it fits with what we're seeking, what we're looking for. And so if you take the position, like we need someone to start in like 2 weeks. And I just was like, yeah, I'll do it. You know, I didn't let myself be like, oh, I have an apartment I'm paying rent for. How am I going to get off of work? You know, all those limitations that keep us stuck. I just said yes, because I knew I was meant to go. And then it all unfolded. I talked to the couple that owned the apartment. They let me keep my apartment rent free the whole time I was gone for 3 months, because they believed in what I was doing. My job was like, as long as you can keep doing a few interviews a week, we'll keep paying you. You can keep working, you can go. So everything, when I believed enough, unfolded to let me have that experience. And then, yeah, I got there. Honestly, I did not prepare myself. I just like knew I was supposed to go, and I was like, I'm going, it's going to be perfect, which I should know by now. It's never perfect. And I remember like being on the airplane, getting some of the jitters more of just like, okay, like what did I sign up for? Like we're doing this, and then landing and getting picked up and brought to this refugee camp, and just seeing, you know, you see pictures, but until you see it, you don't know. You don't know. And I'm a very sensitive, heart-based being. And so I remember just like feeling very overwhelmed by what I was seeing, and how is this possible? You know, a lot of those experiences coming in. And so I slept for the night, and then the next morning they brought me to the school, and they brought me in this classroom. It was my first class with my students, and it was math, sixth grade math. And I was just kind of sitting in the corner observing. And on the way to school that morning, I had seen a child in the street sleeping. And this is like, nothing's really streets. It's all just dirt.
Yep.
But I saw this little boy sleeping, and I pointed him out on the way in. And Matthew, the person who's kind of runs all the foundations, he was like, yeah, that's actually one of our students. But his mother passed away this last year, and he's an orphan now. And I remember just being like, okay, like really touched. And so he was in that first class, and he was like sitting at his desk, and he was kind of like falling asleep and like dozing off a little bit. And the teacher was at the front of the room, you know, just that standard teacher way of being. But he turned around and he saw this little boy, and like I was like, oh my gosh, he's tired. You know, he's hungry, he's thirsty, he has none of his needs are met. How can we expect him to be learning when none of his needs are met? And the teacher kind of walked up behind him and smacked him in the back of the head, and he hit him so hard that his face smashed into the desk, and he got a bloody nose. And I remember that was the moment, that moment leading up to the next 3 nights were like the hardest of my entire life, because that was the moment I let that limiting self come in, because I saw it, and then had to walk out of the classroom in tears and was just like, why am I here? I can't do this. This is so much bigger than me. Like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, I can't do this. I'm one person. I'm so small. I don't know anything about Africa. I don't, you know, just flood in with all of that limitation. And then I was just quiet 3 days, just watching. You know, every teacher had a dried sugar cane, and whenever a child was doing anything, like looking the wrong way, they'd smack them in the arm, smack them in the leg, smack them in the neck. And it was just like, I could just feel myself like depleting and just like so small, becoming so small. And at that third night when I went to sleep, I remember deciding in that moment when I was falling asleep that I was going to go home. Like, I can't do this. I need to go home. I don't belong here. And I went to sleep, and I don't know what happened in my slumber, but I woke up and I remembered who I was and why I was there. And I had this beautiful conversation with myself of like, you just flew around the entire world to be here, and you're not even going to try. You're not even going to try to make an impact. You're not even going to try to bring change. Like, you knew this was going to be hard. You didn't come here because it was going to be easy. You came here because you had something to do here. And like this beautiful, just re-inspired self. And I like came to school that day and was like, no, like, I'm going to make a difference. Like, I'm here for a reason. And then that was just how I moved the next few weeks, just like being that example of like, you can do it differently, not telling them you're wrong, not telling them to do something else. It was showing them, being the example that something different could happen. And then just asking them, like, do you think that punishment was worthy of what they did? You know, they were looking out a window. Do you think that they deserve to be hit and to the point of tears because of that? And just having them question and really look at it. And then I got to have this powerful talk with them the day before I left. And that was the moment that I knew what I did mattered. And it was like, I'm just going to say it like it is. I'm going to just tell them I'm about to leave. I need to tell them. And it was our last workshop with them, and they were all seated in the room. And I just remember it just kind of came through me, but essentially being like, guys, like, you have an opportunity here to change Africa, to change the way that things are done. Like, you are all here. You are all refugees. You're here because of war, and you're here because of violence. Is it the answer? Is war the answer? Is violence the answer? No. So why do you think violence is the answer with your students and your children? You know for yourself that it doesn't work. So instead, you can be that difference. You can be the reason Africa changes. You can be that school that chooses compassion, that chooses a different route. Like, in the United States, we did this too, and it didn't work.
You're
And we
talking to the
changed.
staff with that talk?
Yeah.
Oh, powerful.
And then the first man that stood up was that man from that first class, that my sixth grade math teacher. And he stood up and he was like one single tear. And he said, I didn't know.
Yeah.
We didn't know. This is all we've ever known. And you've shown us something else. And like, thank you, because now we do get to change Africa. We get to be the reason Africa's different. And then it was like, everyone stood up and everyone was like, yes, like we're going to change Africa. Like we're going to be the example. And it was like that moment of just like, one person can bring such huge change and just,
Yeah, I love
yeah.
it. That was such a good story. There's a couple key points in there I think our community needs to make sure they take note of. And the first one is that opportunity came to you at the very, very beginning of the story because somebody else believed in you.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, she had a need. She had to fill a speaker spot, but she also believed that you could do that. Right? And to me, that goes back to the power of when you believe in yourself and you start to believe in others, you don't know what potential hides behind just getting past that first limiting belief.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's huge, and share your belief in others, right? Like you have this amazing potential and you know if you tap other people, they could start to believe somebody did that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And people in all of our lives have done that. And then the other thing is when you questioned yourself and you start to have doubts and you wanted to go home, you remembered why you went to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Too many times we forget that why did I even get here, right? And we talked about this many times, right? Like all of a sudden you own your own business and you're stressing about managing the finances and the payroll and the inventory. If you stop for a minute and go, wait a second, at one point this business was my dream.
Mm-hmm.
All these problems were once the dreams I woke up every day hoping I could have someday. So, man, my hat's off to you. I love that story, and that's, and obviously now they got a great place in your heart. You're continuing reading through your bio. You're continuing to work there, and one of your big life goals is to open your own schools. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so that's a big part of what I opened my company for, Wholesome Alchemy, is to fund this work because it's been really hard to get grants and donations. And I kind of just had this realization, like, this is my dream. This is mine to do. And I can't continue to rely on everybody else to create my dream. I have to do it. And so then Wholesome Alchemy was created to fund and open. The dream is a minimum of 10 different schools and orphanages around the world where I can teach compassion-based education and just inspire them to remember who they truly are and make that impact that they're here to make.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that story. And like Jerrod was saying, there's so many key things to remember in there that are reflected through your story. And I think that our community and listeners are really going to get a lot of valuable takeaways from you sharing that. So keep up the amazing work. And Courtney, for people that want to contribute to your journey, stay up to date with your path and what's going on, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I need to get a little better, a little more active on social media. I'm becoming better, but my Facebook is just under my name, Courtney Bohlman. And then I also have my company, Wholesome Alchemy, on Facebook. Just got my Instagrams, so they're very inactive at the moment, but they are there. And then my website is wholesomealchemy.com, where you can see the work we're doing. You can see how to participate in retreats and programs, or volunteer or donate, any of those things. I'm in process working with the school right now to figure out the next trip down, which it's kind of leaning towards like the end of November. So if there's people who actually want to like go to Africa and like volunteer at one of these schools and essentially just coming. You don't need to be a teacher. You don't need to be anything but you. And for them to know that you've traveled all the way to serve them is enough. So don't think you have to be this master of anything to make a difference. You just got to be you.
Love it. And it goes back to your superpower, right? You just got to be willing to go over and touch somebody and let them remind them they can be great.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Courtney. Community, let's help her grow her Instagram and her Facebook groups and stuff, because we have that power. So let's reach out and let's follow her and share the words and check out her website. Courtney, does the website have yoga and stuff on that as well, or where?
Yeah, so I'm working on creating a second website, but I'm gonna have I also have like a Teachable, and I'm gonna get all my guided meditations and stuff up on there, and at some point start recording yoga classes, but not there yet.
Okay. Yeah.
Lots happening.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you again, Courtney, for joining us. It is an honor to share anybody's story, right? And I think that's one of the greatest gifts people can give you, is to trust you with their story and share it to the world, because somebody right now is going to hear your story and it's going to make the world a little better. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah, thank you for the space to do it.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.